No.
Huh? Oh,
Huh?
today?
Oh, after tomorrow? Oh, I thought I was supposed to stay after. That's yeah, sure. Okay, yalla. Let's do that. Okay.
Does he have the headset?
Okay. 9 o'clock? I'll meet you there. Yeah. Okay. I'll bring my car. So yeah.
Should we start like طيب إن شاء الله let's start إن شاء الله. So second class. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. وبعد جزاكم الله خير for coming. This is the second class in the series, The Generation of Salah ad-Din Between Knights and Scholars. And again, a quick reminder of the title. Remember that always the title is very important. This is not a one-man show. This is not a superhero that just came from nowhere and then the Muslims are salvaged. This is a whole generation raised by scholars. It took quite a while for Salah ad-Din to appear. He wasn't alone. It's not a single man effort. Opening Jerusalem, the victories that happened wasn't by himself. He's great. His commanders are great. The scholars of that time are great. The women, it was a whole generation. It's a group of people that led this, right? And we said in this class, we want to understand how did this happen. And we saw last time, if you remember last time, the main thing I outlined was what? How the Muslims were before the Crusades happened. And we said the main lesson was what? Don't think that we're in such a bad situation. It happens. Muslims before were much better, worse shape than what we are today. And you can see when the Franks came, because of what they were, they performed pretty poorly. If you remember last time, it's a defeat after a defeat after a defeat. 4 battles, defeated. And the Franks by themselves defeated the whole region. And we saw last time how they took Jerusalem, right? And the story is, how will the Muslims revive? How can you revive an ummah in that way? And today it's the beginning of the revival, right? And the lesson of today that I want to focus on, which is very important, on the path of revival, on the path of reformation. What do we expect? What is the sunnah? Like if the ummah today is not in a good shape, and we want to be the people to say, you know what, Bismillah, we're going to put some effort. There are some hurdles on the way. And the biggest hurdle we will see today is not the enemy that we face from outside, is the people that we're trying to serve. Sometimes even in a family level, you're trying to help your son, help your husband, help your wife, right? And the biggest agony is the people you're trying to help, or the people that are putting resistance against you, right? So not to be frustrated, because it's very easy to get so frustrated to say, you know what, it's not worth it. You know when a person goes to a masjid wanting to pray, and then it happens in Egypt and Middle Eastern countries, you go to the masjid to pray, you leave your shoes on the rack, Nike or something, you go out, what happened? Gone. So that person would say what? This is what I get? Look at the mood. I will never go to the masjid again. Is that good? Are you leaving the house of Allah because your shoes got? I know there are people that are not that great in the masjid, but are you going to leave the house of Allah? Are you going to leave the ummah to sink because your shoes got stolen? Or are you going to say, you know what, this is a path of the journey of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a part of it is to be patient with people that I am trying to serve. Think of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I mean, he could have made dua against the people of Mecca. He suffered so much because he was trying to save them. He was fighting them for them. And this is what we want to learn today. The path to change, if you will. So as a start, I'm going to quickly summarize what happened last time, and then we're just going to move forward. So last time we described how the situation was, right? And that the Muslims of the time there was some ideological split. We said there was the Ismaili movement centered in Egypt, and the Seljuks in Sham, and how they were divided, and the Franks came, right? And how they took Jerusalem. And at the end of the day, this is what happened. So I'm going to start from the geography, and then I'm going to move forward. So if you look to the geography, it ended up that the Crusaders arrived, and they defeated the Muslims of the time. Massive, what can I say, genocide, if you will, right? We saw even in the city of Ma'arra how they ate Muslims. It was a terrible thing that happened. And they ended up with a political situation that looked like the following. All the coastal areas are in their hands. And they established some kingdoms, among themselves, some principles. The kingdom of Jerusalem being the most important one, right? This is the one centered on Jerusalem, Al-Quds, right? And then there are other kingdoms, principalities like Antioch, Edessa, and the county of Tripoli, right? So basically the map looked like this. And before I start, just as a summary, what we need to remember today. So the Franks have all the cities by the coast that belongs to them. The Muslims, you need to remember very few things. I won't keep it complicated. The 3 main cities in Sham. There are three big cities that are going to be like the pivot of what we'll see next. Damascus, the capital, Aleppo, and then Al-Mosul. Those three cities, each was ruled by a separate ruler. That was a part of the problem. Now here is the problem. Those rulers would fight each other. They weren't in agreement. The thing to remember, the one in Aleppo in particular, which we'll start with today, his name is Ridwan. You don't have to remember the name of that ruler, right? But we said one of the things that was very particular about him, he made an alliance with the Ismailis, basically the assassins. Remember we said the assassins was a real sect that appeared at the time, and they can assassinate people. So he made sure to ally himself with them, which gave him that kind of, people were afraid of him, because if you do something, he can send the assassins to get rid of you. But as a result of it, in Aleppo, the Ismaili movement started to gain access. They were already the ministers, they had power in the city, the assassins are on their side. They started to spread their madhab in the city of Aleppo, and they were looking forward that gradually maybe that will be one of their cities, right? What happened next was something really interesting. After the Franks came and they took all the cities in the coast, the next 2 decades, if you look to the books of history, it's multiple battles. Right? The battles is between who? Sometimes a Muslim against a Muslim, a Frank against a Muslim, a Frank and the Muslim against. So basically it was all those principles fighting each other. But one thing that happened is the ruler of Aleppo, he realized the Franks are kind of strong. So he wanted to make an alliance with them. He wanted to make sure, basically okay, let's coexist. You're here, I'm there. Let's have a truce, right? And you're my ally. And things are good. You rule your city, I rule my city, and you help me against the other guys. So he sent to them saying, I need to make a truce with you. I don't want you to attack you. I don't want you to attack me. How will we do that? The response was a little bit humiliating. They told him, okay, you want a truce with us? Here is what you need to do. You pay us a yearly tribute of 20,000 dinar. Agreed. Any business transaction happening in Aleppo, you pay business tax, sales tax to us. Can you imagine? So if you're a businessman doing a transaction in Aleppo, 5% of whatever you do goes to the Crusaders, the Franks. Agreed, fine. The third one, which was actually very humiliating. They said, okay, here is a big cross. What am I going to do with it? You go to the biggest masjid in your city and put the cross on top of it. He agreed. Anything. It's shocking, right? So of course, when he did that, the response, people were very upset. No, to that extent, our masjid, you're going to put a cross on top of the biggest masjid in the city. So there was a scholar. And here we will introduce the scholars that resisted. One of the scholars in the city, by the name of Ibn Khashab, he went to Ridwan and said, this is completely not acceptable. This is not permissible. This is there is no way you can do this. And he said something very interesting. He was an activist. He said, I know that we're weak. I know that the Franks are strong. I know the situation. But I'm going to tell you the following. Put the cross down. Allow me to go outside the city. I will gather some Muslim armies from the cities nearby to protect us. Let me go out. I'll convince other Muslims to come to our aid. What do you think the ruler of Aleppo did to this scholar? Who says he killed him? Who says he put him in prison? Because there is different ways. Right? He did something really amazing. He did neither this nor that. He said, of course, please go ahead. Why do you think he did that? No, he was thinking, Muslim rulers I know them. I know the ruler of the Damascus, and those people, they're not going to come. The Muslims, okay, go ahead. You think you can go and show me. So basically he wanted to appear as the good guy. And he in himself is I know them. Nobody's going to really come. They're going to give you big words. Nobody's going to come. So he allowed Ibn Khashab to go. What was happening in the last 10 years, scholars was actually by Imam al-Ghazali and some other scholars were starting to speak to the people about the necessity of jihad. And this movement started. And what happened? Ibn Khashab, when he left for the city of Al-Mosul because he heard there is a new lieutenant. There is the Sultan of Al-Mosul. He had one of the lieutenants of his army by the name of Mawdud. And this young man was influenced by the scholars of the time. So he was very religious. prayed Sunnah on time, fasted Mondays and Thursdays, was known to love reading Quran, was known to respect scholars, was one of the people that was leading some small campaigns against the Franks of the time. So he held some battles against the Franks, small battles. He won some, but nothing big. So he headed to Maudud. And he told them, listen, the situation in Aleppo is quite bad. The Franks are around and we need your help. And the ruler said, if you come, he will make an alliance with you. And that will be good. You know, 2 cities allied, that's good. And I have the word from Ridwan that if you come, things will be good. And Maudud responded. He said, absolutely, this is what I'm looking forward for, gathered his army and headed towards the city of Aleppo. Once he reached the city of Aleppo, what was the response of the ruler? What do you think now happened? The true face appears, right? So he arrests Ibn Khashab, puts him in prison, closes the gates in front of Maudud, calls the Franks. We have an alliance, come help. The army of the Muslims are here, I need your help against them. Now why I'm saying this? Maudud is the change. One person trying to do something. Now I want you to see the frustration that you're facing. Who's your enemy now? You get the idea? I'm coming to help you, and you get the Franks against me. Right? So what can he do? Now he cannot fight both. So he said, okay, he pulled back, and then he said, okay, maybe I can go to the city of Damascus, right? And maybe I can make an alliance with them, right? So let me go a little bit further here. We'll go back to this, don't worry about it, right? So he said, you know what, let me go to the city of Damascus and make an alliance with them. He goes to the city of Damascus, guess what happened? The ruler said, of course, Maudud, the hero, the one that's fighting, of course, please go ahead, opens the gates, invite him in. Yes, we can have an alliance, and now Maudud, it seems that, the 2 cities are forming which is good, an alliance, right? Things look great, and now you have 2 cities that are going to fight the Franks, right? And here is an interesting thing that happened next. On Friday, Maudud goes to pray Salat al-Jum'ah. What happens? And assassins come up in front of everybody, jumps on him in the musalla, and kills him in Salat al-Jum'ah in front of everybody. And when that happened, who did this? Who do you think did this? People said, oh, we know who has the alliance with the assassins. Of course, the guy in Aleppo, because he was afraid. So reality is, it was not Ridwan. Who do you think really did it? It's the ruler of Damascus himself. He viewed that guy more dangerous than the Franks. This guy has popularity. If people like him, he's a threat to me. And look at this. I call the assassins. They kill him. The Muslims will blame Aleppo. Double win. So what do you see as the problem here? The problem is within the Muslim Ummah itself. When that happened, the Franks, Ibn al-Athir says, the Franks sent a letter to the Muslim rulers, mocking the Muslims. And their letter read the following: Inna umma qatalat amidaha yawma aidaha fi bayt ma'budaha kana haqqan ala Allah an yubidaha. A nation, it rhymes, right? In Arabic it rhymes. So his message was the following: a nation that kills its leader that's fighting for them in the house of their Lord, in the day of their Eid, in the day of their worship, Jum'ah, surely deserves from their Lord to destroy all of them. That's the Franks telling the Muslims this. Just want you to imagine that, right? Now, what happened? Can you, here, Bismillah. So the next thing, after that, the assassins didn't stop there, right? Okay, let me, before going to that, I'll say something that I think is also has a very, very important spiritual lesson. When Maudud was assassinated, the Sultan of Al-Mawsil, Sultan Muhammad, was really offended. That is his best lieutenant. I sent him with his forces to help you. The first city shut its gates. The second city, he was killed. So he was offended. So he gathered his biggest army ever from Al-Mawsil and all his cities. and said, I am going to go teach those Muslims a lesson, and I'm going to unify all the cities together. So he takes his army, heads towards those cities to do what? Discipline them, put them all in shape, kind of, right? To know who Mosul was really powerful. When he did this, to his surprise, no, the other way. Yeah. To his surprise, he was faced with an army, right? The army composed of the following. On the left was the army of Aleppo, on the right, the army of Damascus, in the center, the army of the Franks. The three of them united against him, thinking what? He is the source of danger. Can you imagine? Those cities that fight each other, when he came, everybody, Franks, Aleppo, Damascus, all of them, one army against you. Now, the lesson here is what? This Sultan, Muhammad, was so offended with this utter, betrayal. So he said, you know what? Why am I doing this? He decided, I will go back. Don't ever ask me to help again. You get the idea? Why am I doing this? I'm doing this to try to help you. So I'm going to go back, but you do not deserve my help anymore. If you come again, I'm done with you. What is the problem here? Do you see a problem? You remember the example I gave with the shoes? Sincerity, sidq. Are you doing this because it's for the sake of Allah or for the sake of people? And this on the road of change, any person who's working with a Muslim ummah, please remember this. If you serve in a masjid, any masjid, you serve with any Muslim organization, you're going to be faced with people within that organization that might not be that great. You do not abandon the Muslim cause because one person or two people, or they don't deserve it. I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, and this is the house of Allah. I'm not leaving. And the people that I'm trying to reform are the people that I'm going to struggle with. If I find myself trying to help people, and if I go and help them, they hurt me, and I abandon my cause, then was it really sincere or not? You get the idea? So that we will see, especially when it comes to Salah ad-Din, that was one character that he had. As you will see, he really helped Muslims, no matter how they behaved, no matter how many times they will betray him, and no matter how many times they revolt against him. He differentiated between the Muslims of his time and the cause of Islam. And on the cause of Islam, yes, some Muslims are not ideal. And he had a way to deal with them. But I'm not abandoning my cause because some Muslims are not behaving well. We get frustrated. I as an Egyptian, I can tell you this, especially in the 70s, it's happened. Egyptians said, look at the Arabs, they call us traitors, khalas. We have peace with Israel, we have our land back, you guys, go fix your Palestinian problem. Let's focus on ourselves. It's not a Palestinian, I don't care what they said about you. This is about Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is about the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Political offenses with people should not let you abandon your goal. This is a very important principle whenever we work for Allah, small or big, please remember this. Right? So which is a lesson in truthfulness. Before going forward, I'll go back a little bit. Right? Something I wanted to describe earlier, which I didn't do. How did the Muslims view the Franks? Like the Franks in the Muslim eyes. If you go to the Muslim literature, the knights of Europe. In Europe, they tell you chivalry, right? A knight. What does a knight mean? Very romantic, right? He's a knight. He's a man of his word, his honor, right? Appears, with shining, right? You get it? Chivalry means what? You respect women. And chivalry is a Muslim concept, not a Franks. It appeared in this time, especially in the time of Nuruddin and Salah ad-Din. As a matter of fact, scholars of the time wrote, they call it al-futuwa, chivalry. It's a part of akhlaq. The Franks were not this way at all. So how did the Muslims view the Franks? What did they write describing them? And I'll quote for you some description, the Muslim view of those Catholic knights that came in that period of time. So they said the following. They said they admired one thing about them. They said when it came to bravery, those people in the battlefield, they're like lions. They're really brave. They fight. They're very sincere people, very dedicated, very determined. When it came to strength and determination and zealousy for their faith, they are devout Catholics. Right? So like they obey the Pope. They admire that. And then they said everything else they were backward in. And they give us some examples that I find very interesting. So one example they give when it comes to science and medicine. Usama ibn Munqidh, one of the people that were in this time, he writes this. He said one time the Franks sent to the Muslims, telling them what? Muslims were very advanced in science. Europe was in the Dark Ages. They were really backward, as you'll see. So they sent to the Muslims saying, we have some 2 cases that need some medical attention. You guys have good doctors. Send us one of your doctors to help. So they sent one Muslim from their camp, just go help the people there. The guy goes, and when he comes back, they started asking, what happened? How was it? And he was in utter disbelief, this doctor. And I said, what happened? He said, well, the first case, they showed me a knight. And he had a wound in his knee and the wound was infected, right? And there was some infection, so I knew what to do. You need to clean the wound, Kai and what have you, right? So he started to get his, medicine, and he said all of a sudden one of their priests came forward, religious men, and he said the following: what is this infidel doing here? What is this witch doing here? Medicine is witchcrafting, forbidden by the church. You don't do that. He said, I, the priest, I can treat him. Remove that witch, infidel witch. How dare you? Don't you believe in Jesus and the power of God and the power of the church? And I can, you don't, this is witchcrafting. Sihr. See, this is their view, right? Chemistry. The word chemistry comes from what? Who knows? Kimia, right? Al-kimia, chemistry. Chemistry is the Arabic word of alchemy, right? And it was people of the time, Muslims, used to have, they understand chemistry. In Middle Ages, they declared that anyone who uses alchemy is a witch. This is a science that's forbidden, and he should be burned. Right? That's their view. So they removed this doctor, and this priest said, okay, show me the case. Oh, here's the knight. The wound is infected. So he told the knight the following: what would you like? Would you like to die with 2 legs or live with 1 leg? And the knight said, I'd rather live with 1 leg. He said, okay, get me a strong warrior. Get me a battle axe. Hit right there. You have to cut his feet. Cut right here above the knee. And the guy said, really? And he said, yes, 1 sharp hit. And the Muslim doctor is now shocked at this treatment, right? And he said, I saw the guy hitting with the battle axe, and he said the bone marrow splattered. So he ordered him, hit again, hit again. The man bled to death. Right? That was the first case. The second case, he said it was even worse. He said, they brought me a woman who, she used to eat certain things that, she had allergies, and therefore she had some skin condition. Right? He said, I identified this, what are you eating? I see what's going on. This is allergies. You need to regulate your diet. And he started giving him some things to creams and stuff to put on, inflammation. This priest comes again. What is this witchcraft infidel doing here? Get him out of here. I can treat her. And then he looked at her. He said, I see what's going on. The devil fell in love with her. No, we need to cure her from the influence of the devil. So what's the solution? Shave her head. Shaved her head, right? Now the woman got really depressed, started eating more. The inflammation got worse. So what was his diagnosis? The devil went into her brain. We need to get the devil out of her brain. So what's your solution? Bring me a sharp knife. And he started cutting her skull in the form of a cross, and get me some salt so I can push it in her brain to get the devil out. And of course, the poor woman died. Right? So what do you see? Very backward. Extremely really, really no idea of what science is at all. Right? Second thing that Muslims describe very peculiar about the Franks, they said, and I hate to say it, but it's true, they said they're filthy. They don't bathe. One of those soldiers would not take a bath for 2 years. And they would say, and I've heard that myself, by the way, when I visited Spain a long time ago, they said you know that a Frankish army is coming before they show up from the stench in the air. I know you get the idea? I think they're coming, right? It's that bad, right? And I saw myself a galley, one of their ships. You know, galleys, like they have this ship, and you know, they have people that row. Remember in the past, they have the... So and I saw that with my own self, right? One of the galleys. And then I noticed something. The people that row, they chain them in their place. So, you know, like you're the one that rows. So you're chained in one place. So I asked, wait a minute, if the guy is chained here, yani, okay, he needs to sleep, eat, and he needs to go to the bathroom. He said, yeah, all here. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you eat, you sleep, you go to the bathroom. Can you imagine? For like 2-3 weeks. And they said, I heard that from them recent, right? The galley would stink so bad that you know that one of our ships is coming from 2-3 miles before you see it. Now, what was the consequence of this? Because of their uncleanliness, they don't use water. Disease would spread rapidly among them. A lot of Franks used to die when any epidemic spread. Simply because they're unclean. They don't clean themselves. They go to the bathroom, you don't wash their hands. And then they go eat, and then they go shake each other's hand. It's like terrible. Now, in comparison, this is very important. Muslims, we were not this way. We used to be a very clean ummah back in the day. That's some difference, unlike some Muslim countries today. You can be poor. The Prophet ﷺ was poor. Does that mean poor people are filthy? You can be poor and clean. Cleanliness has nothing to do with your social standard. Muslims, we use the suwak, we make wudu, and you have to make ghusl every week. If you're going to go to Jum'ah, you have to make ghusl. The armies of the time, the army of Salah ad-Din, would have mobile bathrooms. Literally. Because your soldiers need to wash. So the idea of cleanliness was so backward when it came to the Franks. Finally, I'll give you one and then we'll move forward. Their idea of justice. Logics and it's actually funny. Muslims were very developed in the art of, fiqh, jurisprudence. If somebody claims that you did something, you go to the court, and you know how Islamic fiqh is: innocent till proven guilty, what is your proof, how many witnesses do you have? It's a court case. They said the Franks, one of the Muslims described, he said, I was shocked. They brought a case in front of me. Somebody accused the other person. He stole my property. What did the judge do? Okay, ask that person, did you steal his property? No, I didn't, he's a liar. The rule that they have. Truth is heavy, right? Falsehood is light. So you bring a big container of water. You get this man, tie his hands behind his back, and tie him with a rope. You throw him in the water. If he's saying the truth is heavy, he'll sink. And then you pull him out to the rope and save his life. If he's lying, he'll float. And then you know that he's guilty and you punish him. And the Muslim guy said, I was shocked at this, ridiculous. And I saw the man, they throw him, and he tried his best to sink, and he couldn't. And he said, they took him out, said guilty, and blinded him. Punishment, blinding. So their idea of jurisprudence was debate. They would go to the Muslims, let's have a debate. Which is right, Christianity or Islam? Muslim theologians, Ilm al-Kalam, they were, of course, please go ahead, Bismillah. Imam al-Qurtubi has books about that. We can really give you a good debate here, right? So they were surprised that the idea of debate with the Christians was the following. Okay, here is how we debate. We light a fire, and both of us pray to our God. Then we both walk into the fire. The one who's saying the truth will be unharmed. The one who's lying will be burned. The Muslim scholars just laughed at the idea. They did not go into it. This is not even. But they were really, really backward. Now I'm saying this because something happened. After the Crusades, after Salah ad-Din, the Crusaders realized one very important thing. The church told them the Muslims are what? Infidels, backward, retarded. When they did some transactions with Muslims, especially at the time of Salah ad-Din, what did they see? Civilization, cleanliness, akhlaq, chivalry. And it disturbed them. The infidels are better than us. So that caused them to start questioning the church. And that led eventually to the secular movement, the fall of the church. This was one factor. Contact with Muslims. Those people saw something is wrong with us, right? It put that in their head. Anyway, so that's one point I wanted to say before we go ahead. The second thing, which is also very important, before I go back to the line of event, we said that as we go through the years and discuss the lines of political events and how change happened, it's very important also to look on the scholars of the time. Who was doing what, right? And last time we identified Imam al-Ghazali that came in the time, right? And we said how he left and came back and started educating a new group of scholars. Around that time that we were speaking about, 520 Hijri, 525 Hijri, some scholars took lead. Among those are the names in front of you. Ibn al-Jawzi, very famous, right, in Baghdad. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i, Abu Madyan in Morocco. So you can see there is a movement happening here. Now those shuyukh did something really interesting. I'll quickly throw it and then go back to the line of event that will lead to a change. Imam al-Ghazali outlined a principle of how to change. How not only to change theologically in your head, how to change your akhlaq. How do you become a generous person? How do you have tawakkul on Allah? How can you become an appreciative person? How can you become a patient person? You know, how to acquire those traits. How can I clean my heart? In Ihya Ulumuddin. But he taught a group of scholars. This wasn't the public. So his teaching is what? I'm teaching scholars. The second generation scholars, like Sheikh Abdul Qadir in particular, did something really unique. Sheikh Abdul Qadir spent 50 years working on himself. He did not speak in public. Taking what Imam al-Ghazali said, working really on mujahadat al-nafs. At the age of 50, he started to speak publicly. The scholars like Sheikh Ibn al-Jawzi, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i, the unique thing that happened in this time, they took this teaching, right, of tazkiyah and akhlaq that only a murid, only special people would, back in the day, this is not for the public, this is a special science. Like seminary students nowadays, you go and study, and then you meet the sheikh and he's going to but the public, this is. So what those scholars did, they took that science, simplified it, and they started to preach it to the public. You get the idea? So they started sessions of what we call wa'ath, admonishment. They took this ilm of tazkiyat al-nafs, made it so simple, and they started massively in durus, khutab, weekly, daily, in schools that you remember, in the Nizamiyya schools that they started to preach to people. That had a significant effect on people of the time. Sheikh Abdul Qadir said, on my hands, more than 100,000 bandits repented. Right? Now, one of the people that his name is not here, like Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani was in Baghdad, right? There is another guy not known. Sheikh Abdul Qadir, by the way, is very famous. All scholars agreed on, he's a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, including Ibn Taymiyyah, the Ahnaf. It's like all unanimous. As a matter of fact, do you notice where Ibn Taymiyyah is, by the way? Ibn Taymiyyah is very far, right? At the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, a quick story. Again, this is something, if you're interested, you'll find it very interesting. Do you notice what is common? Al-Shadhli, Al-Rifa'i, Al-Jilani. Is there a trend you see here? What is the common thing between those three? I don't know if you're picking on what I'm saying. Al-Shadhiliyya, Al-Rifa'iyya, Al-Qadiriyya. When I see this, the idea of tasawwuf nowadays, people that follow the science of tasawwuf, right? Usually they have tariqas, right? Not all of them, some of them. Some of the most famous tariqas, ways, is what? Al-Shadhili, right? Al-Rifa'iyya, Al-Qadiriyya. It seems that they all appeared in this time. I don't know if you're getting, so from a theological perspective, that's very interesting, whether you agree with what is going on. What was going on is the following. The scholars of the time tried to take this science of tazkiyah and tried to make it, if you're a person that wants to change, what is a good method? Which dhikr should you use? How do you... So they started forming turuq, right? The problem later on, that people, a century later, it changed. I'll give you an example. Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i, and I'm sorry for this, it's on the line of scholarship. Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i, his way was what? Compassion, shafaqa, empathy is essential. Absolutely essential to good akhlaq. So the idea of being compassionate, being giving, being generous, he was known for this. To the extent, in سير أعلام النبلاء, يعني الإمام الذهبي says one time he was giving a session in the masjid. And notice this is how you're learning from a sheikh. And a kitten entered the masjid. Cats used to go into the masjid, right? And the sheikh was so peaceful, this kitten came and he was sitting and he had a sleeve, long sleeve. And the kitten came and slept on his sleeve. You get the idea? And he just let the kitten, alhamdulillah, he just continues giving his session. Well, it's time for Salah, the adhan is called. So he asked somebody, can you give me your knife, please? So the guy gave him the knife and he started cutting his sleeve. And then he went and pricked. He went back and anybody has a needle. And he started stitching. And he looked at everybody and said, what? ما تغير شيء. Nothing changed. So he was known to be what? Very compassionate with animals. Right? And today there are still shuyukh this way. Like, I've heard about a sheikh in al-Mansura from one of our shuyukh here. He said this is his teacher. He said, Wallahi, in the countryside, he said, I used to see, he used to walk, and behind this sheikh, you find the line, and very disciplined. Ducks, dogs, cats, because he has food for them and they're all very disciplined. They're walking behind the sheikh, he would give them. And he said, I saw him when he's eating. He would sit outside and he's eating. And he said a dog would come and sit right beside him, very polite, not doing anything. And the sheikh, notice what he does. Takes with his right, eat, then puts on his left hand and give to the dog. And then he takes, notice like you see the idea, right? He takes with his right, eats, puts to the left hand, give to the dog. This is how people learned. If that's your teacher, right? Sheikh al-Rifa'i one time saw one of his students. And his students had, a baqqa, a bug basically, a mosquito, right? And it bit him. So his student did what? What would you do if there's a mosquito? Right? But the student did it in a very specific way. He didn't just do this. The student did what? I want you to notice. A bug bites me, and he's like, a bug bites me. What did you see here? Did you see what does that show? You saw the anger? So he saw that. This is not about a bug. No, there is a trait in there. I saw how you reacted. And I saw the vengeance in you. And I saw the anger. And I saw how you just, right? So he told that man, لا وأخذك الله. No, may Allah take your own soul. شفيت غيظك, you extinguish your wrath. Are you telling me not to kill bugs? See, fiqh tells me what I did is halal. But he's seeing something else. From a tazkiyah perspective, you have to control your anger. A bug bites you, if you want to kill something, Bismillah, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you kill without this vengeance in you. If you have that type of vengeance and your son spills something on the carpet, may Allah help your son. True. Because you don't. So as a matter of fact, and I say it, some of the shuyukh of our current time, I still remember Sheikh Mukhtar Maghrawi, right? You go in his retreats, wallahi, I would never forget it. One of the best things he taught. You're coming to a retreat to learn tazkiyat al-nafs. First thing, summer, hot, lake. You go down, there's a lot of mosquitoes. First thing he tells you, don't kill any mosquito. Don't kill them. You can defend yourself, you can put bug spray. No killing mosquitoes. ليه يا شيخ, it's halal. See, yes, it's halal. What is he teaching? Yeah. I want you to be doing dhikr and salah, and mosquitoes are there to annoy you, and I want you to control. Don't you want to learn anger management? You want to learn it, or you want to theorize about it? So sit and let mosquitoes be there, and wallahi, I've seen it with my own eyes. He would be teaching, and this is, I watched him. And a mosquito, you know how a mosquito comes? It's your natural reaction. My natural reaction would be I get very anxious, you hear the, and I'm going to get, right? And you do this, right? Wallahi, I've seen it. The mosquito would come and as if nothing is, he's speaking and he would do this, wallahi. I would hit it. He would do what? He trained himself. Patience, hilm. I don't get agitated easily. So when I go back and people agitate me, I react in the same way. Do you get the idea? So this experiential teaching, it was embodied by the scholars of this time. This is what they started teaching. That's what they started teaching the public. So that you change. It's not only the theory, it's the heart. Right? So this is علم تزكية النفس, taught experientially by the masters of the time. Now what happened later in the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, he noticed that the people following Sheikh Ahmed al-Rifa'i deviated so much. Meaning what? They're doing the weird things. Tasawwuf became about dancing, jumping up and down. This was not tasawwuf at all. Tasawwuf is a hard science. It's about what? Forgiving others, praying a lot, following the sunnah, being appreciative, spending your money. Tasawwuf is hard. But it became of what? Jumping up and down, and now the Rifa'iyya or what? Sheikh Ahmed al-Rifa'i used to love animals. So they started wearing snakes and things, and he started saying, those scholars never did this. So you find Ibn Taymiyyah in his Mujallad al-Tasawwuf, he has one book about Tasawwuf. He explains one of the books of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, called Futuh al-Ghaib, as the way of the correct path of how you purify yourself. So he was trying to reform at-Tasawwuf. Today, I think this is one movement that really needs a lot of reform. Tasawwuf is not about feeling good and jumping up and down and what is your word and saying 1,000 times. It's much deeper than this, right? Anyway, so that's the thing is, those scholars had drastic impact. I'll finish with one thing and we'll return back to the line of events. One of the scholars of the time his name is Adi ibn Musafir. He's not famous, he's not known, right? But he did something opposite of those people. Those people were in Sham, Damascus, Baghdad, right? He went to an area that it's Hikar, mountainy area in Kurdistan, where it was known to be what? An area of thugs and thieves. You know downtown LA? You know what I'm speaking about? You go in certain areas and they tell you like those are gangs-ridden areas. It's one of those areas, right? And he went there. And what did he do? He had got a piece of land and he lived there. And he started preaching to those gang members, you know, those cutthroats and thugs. And it's said that by his effect and his preaching, most of them repented. Most of them really believed that this is a righteous person. They started to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now those Kurds, Al-Hikariya or Ruwadiyya, started later coming down from Hikar, serving Nuruddin and Salah ad-Din. The father of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi was one of those people. Most of the commanders, you'll see many of the commanders around Salah ad-Din, you'll find the name Al-Hikari. That's where they came from. You get the idea. Imagine downtown Los Angeles, and you send the sheikh there, and in 20 years it becomes like Irvine. It's like, what have you done, right? How did that happen? Like, they're very pious, and now they have masajid, and the gangs repented, and those gangs. And this is, again, why am I saying this? Salah ad-Din, Al-Faqih Isa al-Hikari, those people that did the change, they came from, sometimes it's those people that need our attention. Sometimes reform happens, it's not only in the elites. I need to focus on them too, I need to give them a chance. A part of our scholarly work is not to teach in big, famous Islamic centers. You need to go down to where people have problems and they can be the next Salah ad-Din. Right, so this is a very important lesson that I wanted to share with you. Right. Let's go back to the line of events. Right, so, I'm going the other way. Those are, by the way, some books. I have them here. If you want some books of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani or Imam al-Ghazali, please come to me. I can give you some reference. The books are available. So, we spoke about assassins, right? And how they assassinated Mawdud, right? And it didn't stop there. Who was now speaking against the assassins, right? Some of the scholars are speaking against the assassins too, right? So they started looking at Ibn Khashab, this scholar that started speaking against them, right? Remember, they would target scholars as well. Anyway, things happened, and I would say the following: the next event that happened, and again, I'm skipping a little bit of history here so that we can move forward. Eventually, the ruler of Aleppo, Ridwan, the one that was aligned with them, he died. He passed away. When he died, the assassins, the Ismailis, said that's a great opportunity. We have good control of the city, right? It's a good time to what? Jump, sit on the chair, control it, right? The person that stood against them was the scholar. You remember Ibn Khashab? This fiery person so he's the one that went and started speaking to people and telling they should not do that, and started amassing people against them, chasing them, but who would rule the city? And he said, don't worry, allow me to go out, the same thing. I will go get someone to help. When he did that, the Ismailis and the assassins went to the Franks. And they said, what? Help put us in power in Aleppo, we will form an alliance. And we will allow you in the city, and we will give you other villages and other forts. Help us. And the Franks required no further invitation. And a huge army moved and started surrounding the city of Aleppo. And Ibn Khashab now was like, what do we do? There is the Franks, we don't have a leader, right? And the Ismailis are going to take over, right? And he said, give me a delegation, and he left to get some help. In this, by the way, I'm going to go fast, I'm not going to give the details of it, but the Franks did terrible things around Aleppo. So of the things they did, one of them started digging some of the Muslim graves, getting up some Muslim bodies out, tying them to their horses, dragging them in front of the wall, and mocking and saying, this is your Prophet Muhammad. One of them got the Quran, tied it behind the tail of his horse, and the horse would go on the Quran. And he would walk in front of the Muslims and say, look at what's happening to your book. Right? So there was a lot of, they antagonized Muslims. And the people in Aleppo, they were, what should we do? So Ibn Khashab left and went to a city of Al-Mosul. After Mawdud passed away, another man, you don't have to remember those names, I'm mentioning them for a reason. His name is Al-Bursuqi, same style, young man, affected by the scholars of the time, wanting to do some change, wanting to fight, has fought the Franks a little bit, carrying the banner, and he's very adamant about we have to do something. So Ibn Khashab went to him. He found him very sick. And Bursuqi said, if Allah grants me that I'm cured, I promise I'll get every single soldier I'll have, and I will go help you. And by the grace of Allah, 2 days later, he was cured. And it is said he fulfilled his promise, gathered his army, right? Tens of thousands, everyone he can, and he started marching towards the city of Aleppo to again fight the Franks and save the city. When the Franks saw him coming, they retreated for a battle. Let's fight. Al-Bursuqi did something really interesting. He chose not to fight them. His choice was, I'm not going to fight, let me go inside the city. Why did you think he did that? Why not fight? Why did he go inside the city? Any ideas? They backed up, when you see an army coming, so they cannot be giving you their backs, right? So they put their army in a way and went to an open area, okay, let's fight, right? And he chose to do what? Nope. He just escaped and just went inside the city, no fight, and refused to come out. Now my army is inside the city, I'm not fighting. Why? Exactly, his reason was, what is the most important thing to do at the time? Save the city of Aleppo. The city is unstable, the city needs a ruler, right? If I go and put my army inside, we are at an extreme advantage. They will have to leave. And I have achieved something that was not achieved before. Al-Mosul and Aleppo are now united. And he's told people, once we do that, next year, we're going to go out, then we'll fight them. With both cities united. You get the idea? It's a strategy. So he did that, and indeed, for the first time in decades, 2 of the Muslim cities got united under one Muslim ruler, Al-Bursuqi. And he started to send, expeditions to fight the Franks, small battles, he would win here and there, but he started the effort. Again, I want you to see something. Those are the people that started what? Change. Mawdud is one of them. Al-Bursuqi is one of them, right? What do you think happened next? Anybody wants to guess? One Friday prayers, Salah al-Fajr, Al-Bursuqi sees a dream. In his dream, he said, I saw 5-6 dogs attacking me, and I defended myself. I got rid of 2 of them, but the rest killed me. And people told him, no, please, sir, please, skip Salat al-Fajr today. Don't go. And he said, how can you tell me that? This is a fard, and I have to pray. And then he opened the Quran. And the ayah that showed in Surah Al-Ahzab, وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدَرًا مَقْدُورًا. The command of Allah is going to happen. See? I cannot leave the shara of Allah because of a dream, no matter what happens. And he went to Salat al-Fajr in Jama'ah. And indeed, 5-6 assassins attacked him. He defended himself, got rid of 2, and the 4 other people killed al-Bursuqi again. And you can see the problem. It seems that every time somebody wants to do something, something happens, right? But now it didn't stop there, right? On another Friday, who was their next target? Who's the man that resisted them? This scholar that speaks against us. On the pulpit in a Jum'ah prayer, somebody comes up, stabs Ibn Khashab to death. It doesn't stop there. Next year, Al-Qadi al-Harawi, the judge of Jerusalem, same thing. He was speaking out loud, a Friday prayer, they assassinate him. Years later, the Khalifa himself, Al-Rashid, Al-Mustarshid, the son of the Khalifa, they just were killing left and right. And you can see that the assassins are becoming it's really a threat to the Muslims. And it looks here that every time something happens, it's you can see the problem, it's from within. There is treason from within. And again, aren't you frustrated? You get the idea? The path of change will have some frustration, but we have to stay the course, right? Which is the lesson here. So what happened? Before I go further, I want you to notice the 2 types of scholars. This is important. On the path of reform, we see 2 types of different scholars. You see the likes of Ibn Khashab, I call it the Ibn Khashab style, and you see Imam al-Ghazali. Ibn Khashab was what? An activist. Present in what? The political situation. He would go, he would solve the problem. We have a problem in Aleppo, I need to get an army. I need to go to speak to, an activist. On the ground, demonstrations, working, short-term solution. Aleppo needs to be saved now. I need to do something now. I need to motivate people now. He gives fiery speeches. He motivates people. He lets you. That's one style. There is another style. What's the style of Imam al-Ghazali? He's not focused on a short-term solution. His focus is what? This is a long-range problem. It's a problem that it's not going to be solved in 1 year. I need to focus on the next generation. Instead of treating of the symptoms, which is what Imam al-Khashab is doing, let me treat the root cause. Hubb al-dunya, that's the essence of it, right? The fact that we're not united. Let me go, it might take 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. But he's working on what? Long-range plan. Which one do we need? Which one should we have? Exactly. Alhamdulillah that you guys see this. Because what I see happening, if you fall on this side, people will call you names. Imam al-Ghazali, why aren't you? Imam al-Ghazali, by the way, if you read his book of Ihya Ulumuddin, again, he lived in the time of the Crusades. Do you find any chapter about jihad? Jihad fi sabilillah? No. What? How? Oh, this is the Sufi man. The Sufis are not completely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Umar al-Mukhtar, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi, people of Tasawwuf. But Imam al-Ghazali saw what? The problem, people's heart is dead. You cannot call on a dead person to fight. He will run away. If I call on you to fight and Hubb al-Dunya is here, and you have envy, and you're not going to perform. This is why the armies were defeated. That's what he saw. The Muslims ran away. No matter how many times they stand against why are they running away? Because of a problem in them. So Imam al-Ghazali, his method is what? Let me focus on what? I'll say it this way. قابلية الانهزام. The affinity to be defeated. Ya akhi, today, why are we so easy to defeat? I'll tell you this. Subhanallah. There is a book called Arabs at War, written by a CIA person. What is the book about? The observation. America fights Japan. America wins. But how did Japan perform? Iwo Jima, I mean, it was difficult. They put resistance, right? America goes to Vietnam. What happened there? Vietnamese people, they're so determined, right? America goes to Iraq. 7 days, the whole system collapsed. And the book is about what? Israel and the Arabs. 6-day war. Israel attacks 3 Muslim countries, 6 days, everybody. The book is about what? The CIA person is asking one question. What is wrong with the Arabs that they perform so poorly in the battlefield? You get the idea? So Imam al-Ghazali observed the same thing. We don't lack numbers. And this book tells what? We give them technology. We give them, they're equipped. They have money. They have everything. Yet, when they are attacked in the battlefield, they're not a threat to us. And the book is analyzing what's wrong, the Arabs. Of course, not a secular book. So he's not diagnosing the spiritual part. Imam al-Ghazali saw the same thing. Why are the Muslim soldiers running away? He said, we have an affinity for defeat. So he's treating what? The affinity of defeat. We need both scholars. You don't call that person a traitor, and you don't call that person a fiery. We need both styles. What we don't need is that you're neither here nor there, sitting doing nothing. Right? But we need both together. So this is very important to outline. Right. So how did the change happen? What happens next? When Suqi died, it looked like, everything is lost and things are going to be bad. When he died, a true change happened. The follower of al-Bursuqi, and I want you to see, there is a gradual change. A man came to power by the name of Imad al-Din Zinki. And that was a start of a reform and change. Who's Imad al-Din Zinki? What is he going to do? What is his plan? Right? How is he going to take the next step? Inshallah, after Salat al-Maghrib, that's what we're going to see. This is the start of really a change. We'll stop here inshallah and we'll resume after Salat al-Maghrib. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. عليكم السلام. الحمد لله. الله يعزك يا رب.
هذا شيء جميل.
ادعوا لنا بالتوفيق ان شاء الله والقبول.
درس بالتاريخ مهم.
جزاكم الله. بسم الله. So let's start إن شاء الله. بسم الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. So as we continue the class, this is a session that I think marks a change. So I know the past few sessions kind of depressing, right? So now, inshallah, hopefully you'll see, inshallah, things are going to get better. And I want you to notice something today, that there were some efforts of reform. Reform didn't come all of a sudden. Those people that we hear about today, Mawdud, Al-Bursuqi, they're not famous. Nobody knows them. You speak about Salah ad-Din, very famous. You speak about Nuruddin Zenki, very famous. But those people in Mawdud and Al-Bursuqi, they are really as sincere and they tried their best, but they didn't see the fruits, but they were the seed, right? So sometimes on the road to change, it might take 30 years. And I might be in a phase right now of that we have some people that try to do something, but it doesn't show us the fruit yet. Don't despair. The road to change happens gradually. It is not all of a sudden. That's a lesson, right? So we saw how Bursuqi came to power and how he was assassinated, right? And we said after he got assassinated, a new leader came in power that was the core of the change. A man, one of the people that was fighting under Bursuqi, a man by the name of Imaduddin Zenki. Now Imaduddin Zenki, and I want you to watch now how gradual the change is. Imaduddin Zenki was a very good soldier. So if they describe him, yes, he revered scholars. He understood the importance of scholars. He had got affected a little bit with it. But if you want his personality, he's a soldier. He's an excellent soldier, commander. They describe him, he lived with his soldiers. He lived in tents. The most favored, people that favored him the most are what? Commanders, leaders. So among the soldiers, he has a reputation of courage, strength. He understands them very well. Good soldier himself. But Imaduddin Zenki, the key about him is he started to notice and make some changes on a foundational level. So his reform, when he came to power, was two things, I would say, two main things that characterized Imaduddin Zenki. He identified Muslims, we need two things that we lack. Number one, the reason we're defeated, we are not unified. We're not unified. It's obvious. We only have two cities. And the Franks, if as Muslims we need to fight, the number one thing that I must do is what? We need to get united. I need to unify Muslims. So that was his first thing, right? How would he do that? So that's the right idea, right? So how do you unify Muslims? I have many traitors, many rulers as you see, like that. So how do I unify Muslims? He said, with force. So his way was what? In order to go and free Muslim cities, those traitors I have to get rid of them. So he would go and attack some Muslim cities and Muslim countries trying to do what? His pretext is, the more I get them together, the more strong we are, the more we're under one flag, the more we can fight in a better way. Unity is important, and his method was, I'll use force for it. Remember, he's a soldier, right? So that's how he thinks. But some people nowadays says, Ya akhi, Muslims, they need the whip. You know what I mean? The only way to reform us sometimes is just Hajjaj ibn Yusuf method, right? So he was a little bit on the harsh side. The second, he said the following. One thing he identified that is lacking, the concept of justice. He said there is no, and that's said by many scholars, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give victory to a non-Muslim nation that is just over a Muslim nation that is unjust. That justice is the essential to establish any nation. If we are unjust to each other, it cannot happen. So he was big on what? Justice must be established. Now, he noticed something that was very interesting about him. Remember, he's a soldier. He started to notice the soldiers of the time are not disciplined. Meaning what? All the soldiers that I described before were almost like mercenaries. You know, it's like they fight for what? They fight for money, status, kingdom, right? I'm a soldier at the end of the day. You pay me, I fight for you. He said this has to stop. Soldiers need to be, they need discipline. So it's not just good and strong soldiers that you buy and give them money and they, no. You need to know how to be a soldier, and soldiers fight together in formation. You need to have discipline. You need to be just soldiers, not Muslims. Which was going, meaning what? As soldiers, they would go into the marketplace, bully people, And he was, the way to establish this was what? He would tell his soldiers, if one person complained about, and you oppressed a farmer, I will crucify you myself. So he used what? Harsh punishment against his soldier. If you were to make any mistake, if you start oppressing the Muslims, you're supposed to protect them. The last thing ever, the worst crime is that when the people that were supposed to protect us are the people that are oppressing us. This is like unforgivable for him, right? On the contrary, now he did something else, but as a soldier of Imad ad-Din Zenki, I will take care of you. I'll give you endowments, I'll give you land. If you die fighting for me, your family, your kids are I'll take care of you. Right? So he gives them this. You don't need to start getting, you're a soldier in Imad ad-Din Zenki's, army. So therefore, don't worry about your kids, don't worry about your wife, don't worry about money. You're going to be treated well. But in return, you must not be in any form injured against any Muslim. And then soldiers were disciplined, so he was characterized, what were his two things? Justice is very important, and unity. But the thing about him was what? To achieve this, remember, a commander, he used force, punishment. So some of the scholars like him, but they point that this is a weakness, if you will, that he's sometimes harsh. Sometimes he punishes. Sometimes he attacks. Right? He had good intentions, but that was his method. Right? So, soldier-like, feared, admired by people, very strong in the battlefield, lived in tents, understands military techniques very well, very concerned for the Muslims, want to unify the Ummah, has a right cause, want to fight the Crusaders, right? So now we see some seriousness here. And he started that reform, right? Now, one of the things he did is recognizing now the need to expand. He started doing what? Mosul and Aleppo are under his control. So he started gradually to attack different forts and different cities, and in his time, his strength grew. He started to gather more Muslims under his rule. But there was one problem. We said there are 3 big cities in Sham, right? You notice 2 of them are united, Aleppo and Mosul. The capital of Sham, Damascus, that's not under him. And I cannot fight the Franks without Damascus. Those 3 cities need to unify. So he was what? I need to unify Damascus. So he gathered his army and marched against the city of Damascus. Now remember, Damascus, very well fortified city. This is the capital of Sham. What do you think the ruler of Damascus did? Anybody wants to guess? He went inside the city, but Imad ad-Din, will he face Imad ad-Din by himself? So who? Ismailis are not with him. The Franks. So he immediately contacted the Franks, especially the ones in Jerusalem, said we need to make a treaty. We have a common enemy, and he's very dangerous. So I am going to give you 20,000 dinars, right? And I'm going to give you the city of Banias free. Take that city, take that fort, take this, take that. In return, we have a joint defense agreement. That if Imad ad-Din attacks and I come to you, you send your army to help me. So when Imad ad-Din showed at the city of Damascus, the ruler of Damascus and the Crusaders, of course, didn't need more invitation. They went and they faced the army of Imad ad-Din Zenki. Imad ad-Din laid siege to the city of Damascus. But again, Damascus is a powerful city, strong city. The siege dragged. and dragged and dragged, and he could not take that city. The Franks are on one side, the city is well fortified, right? It's not an easy thing, and now Muslims are fighting Muslims, it's a fitna, right? You can see what do you do? He's a traitor. So in the book of Imad al-Din Zenki, traitors should be eliminated. You get the idea? And he would use what? Force. I need to remove them so that, and wallahi, subhanallah, nowadays you look to some of, I'm not going to make any names, but I don't need to comment. Some of the leaders we have, ya akhi, it's a disgrace. It's treason, what's happening, treason. This is the least I can say, right? So same thing, you're allying yourself with the Franks against the Muslim and delivering cities to them. As long as I sit on my seat, I'm good. That's not all what's important for me. I rule Damascus, that's it. Jerusalem is a Palestinian problem, not my problem. I'm Syria, I'm Egypt. I rule Cairo. Where is the Ismailis? Minding their own business. And you'll see later what the Franks said about Egypt is really interesting, right? So, anyway, so Imad al-Din Zenki tries as much as possible. I don't know, this thing is not working. It's oh, it's delayed. Okay. Man, it's it has a mind of its own, right? Okay. Can it go back? Okay. I'm not touching. Okay, are we stable now? Alhamdulillah, right? So the attack against Damascus failed. Now Imad al-Din did something that will cause a lot of change. He said, okay, I cannot take Damascus. Maybe it's time for me now to do what? Let's try to attack the Franks for the first time. And he's not speaking about a battlefield, a skirmish. He said, maybe it's time I can get my forces and really try to get one city back. Attack the Franks in a major way. And again, he looked, which city should he pick? Jerusalem? Really good, right? Antioch? If you were Imad al-Din, which city would you pick? Let's see. Jerusalem, why? See, that's the heart. That's very nice. Alhamdulillah. The heart says what? May Allah keep your heart that pure. Jerusalem is the most important city, right? And my heart says what? If I was to make any major attack, the first one, the most important city to liberate is indeed Al-Quds. Strategy, remember, this is a soldier, which is extremely important lesson, that sometimes leading by the heart only can lead to problems. And I will speak a lot about this in this series, right? So Imad al-Din said, that's not a good idea. Jerusalem is bad. Why? First of all, Damascus is not with you. Your back is not there. Without Damascus, how are you going to jump at Jerusalem? And you can be attacked from the back. So that's one. The second, a very important concept. If you attack Jerusalem, what does Jerusalem represent to the Franks? A capital, right? So what do you expect the reaction will be like? Huge, right? The concept of counter-attack. This is a very important concept that I think the next generation, please learn this concept. What is the concept of a counter-attack? If you have an enemy, any enemy, right? So let's say I have a bully at school, right? And I caught him unattentive. And of course, don't do this, right? And I slapped him on the face. Alhamdulillah, I got him. Or I punched him and he fell. Got him. What do you have to worry about now? He's going to stand back up. Then what? What are you going to do? Are you ready? Do you have a plan? Did you plan for that? When you punched him, and I'm not telling you kids to do that, right? It's recorded, right? But the problem here is what? If you just thought about the first battle, that you'll get him down, but you didn't finish him off, he's going to stand up. Did you think about what's the next step? If the answer is no, what will happen now? He's going to come at me. And if I'm not prepared, what will happen? I'll probably lose. So whenever you attack an enemy, right? If you win, I have to think, once I win a little bit, my enemy will do what? Will do a counter-attack. Winning is not about the first battle. I have to win the first battle, then what? Break the counter-attack somehow. You get the idea? The easiest way to remember it from a spirit perspective, Ramadan. I always give this example, right? So in Ramadan, alhamdulillah, last 10 nights, great. Laylat al-Qadr, so what do? Alhamdulillah. So I save all my energy. And when it's the last 10 nights, what do? I give my reading Quran, tahajjud, qiyam, right? Dhikr, dua, 100% of my effort. And alhamdulillah, my enemy, shaitan, is where? In Ramadan, where is shaitan? Chained, right? And I'm winning big time. I'm winning against my nafs and winning. And now I'm doing qiyam and tahajjud and dhikr and dua. And I'm saying, Laylat al-Qadr and 100% of my work, right? And alhamdulillah, Laylat al-Qadr and 27th and 29th. And I prayed the whole night and mashallah, good advancement. Now Eid comes. What am I doing? I spent all my energy. Nothing left. And on the day of Eid, I'm what? Totally exhausted and in a what? Relaxed mode. I'm celebrating. Shaitan is out when? Here Ramadan, he's locked. The day of Eid, Shaitan is what? Loose. What do you think he'll do to me? 30 days I've been winning. And I've been winning. And when will Shaitan attack me the most? Not the 27th, not the 29th. When? Eid. So most of us, when Eid comes, how are we? In a completely relaxed state. And Shaitan does his counter-attack. So I don't play in the masjid. I stop doing qiyam. I stop making dhikr. I stop reading Quran. And in few days, Shaitan wins back everything I did. So the concept of counter-attack is what? If I'm in Ramadan, the last 10 nights, I don't put 100% of my energy in the last 10 nights. I don't do that. Put 70%. What about the last 30%? The most important day of Ramadan, after Laylat al-Qadr, is what? The day of Eid. The Maghrib, last day of Ramadan. You know, when the last night of Ramadan, Maghrib, I'm at the masjid. Shaitan is going, I'm going to meet him right there. And I'm going to meet him with what? Dhikr. And that night, I'm doing qiyam. And tomorrow, I'm praying Fajr at the masjid. And Dhuhr at the masjid. And making Ep2. I have to spend the next week doing what? Maybe not like Ramadan. But I'm alert. There is a counter-attack coming. Do you get the idea? If I break the counter-attack, guess what? Whatever you did in Ramadan will stay. But if I'm not aware of this, if I win and I'm not prepared, the counter-attack will push me back. So Imad al-Din saw the city that is the best to attack. If you look to the map from a military perspective, you see how Mosul and Aleppo, and there is this protrusion called Edessa, Al-Roha, that is protruding inward. And it's one of the weakest cities, and it's in the middle between of his two cities. He said, that's the one I'm going to attack. And he got his army and started marching south towards Damascus. So the Franks thought what? He's going for Damascus again. And he waited till the ruler of Edessa was out on a hunting trip. And then Imad al-Din ordered his army to go back, and he started attacking the city of Edessa. Right? And he laid siege to the city. And he got his army, right? And they did something really interesting. They took the city by surprise. His engineering brigade, one very interesting technique, right? They designed some form of a shelter, iron, right? That's movable. And they have a brigade of engineers under it. And then they start throwing, stones and with the trebuchets and catapults and arrows. And then they move this device by the wall with some engineers and workers under. What are they doing? And as they come by the wall, they're not climbing the wall. They started digging. Oh, they're going to make a tunnel to the other side, right? No, that's not what they're going to do. So they started digging, and they went under the foundation of the wall. You know how when you have a wall, there is... So they dig, and they went under the wall. And then they started putting wooden planks. So now the wall is resting on wooden planks, right? And then they burned the wooden planks. So you see, like now you have the wall, and they dig and they put wooden planks under it. Once the wood is burned, the woods collapse, the wall is what? So wall falls. And a breach happened in the wall. You get the idea? Now the city is exposed. And now Imad al-Din troops started entering the city of Edessa. And for the first time since the Crusaders came, a major victory for the Muslims, not in the battlefield, they took the city of Edessa back from the Franks. And Imad al-Din succeeds in entering the city of Ruha, Edessa. Again, this thing is not working. Okay, so when that happened, now Imad al-Din took one, not only it's not a Muslim city, it's a Frankish city. You might consider it a small city, but Imad al-Din didn't realize what happened. This news spread among the Muslims like fire. For the first time, a Muslim ruler succeeds in taking one of the cities back. And people started now what? The hope soared. They can be defeated, we can take cities back. Maybe Antioch is next. You know how people now their hopes are up. Imad al-Din now is a hero, right? And everybody is now flocking to him. And people are like admiring him. And Muslims now are like, the thought of fighting the Franks, their hearts are hopeful. So hope started to soar. And people started to see what we can do something. Change is possible. So Imad al-Din Zinki did not realize that this, you call it even a small victory. Maybe it's small from a strategical perspective, but for the Muslims of the time, it was something, when you look to the reading and when you read the Muslim history, Muslim scholars sees this as a landmark achievement. For the first time, this is a principle. The principle of Edessa fell to Imad al-Din Zinki. And Imad al-Din Zinki now what? Is a hero. And Imad al-Din Zinki does not stop. He starts doing what? Expansion again. Taking more Muslim cities. But here is something that we spoke about. The news of the fall of Edessa went to who? Who heard about it? Not only here, it went to Europe. What do you think the Pope did? What did we speak about? He got alarmed. Muslims are fighting back. So he contacted all the kings. A new crusade must be formed right now. The king of Germany, the king of France, gather your forces. You have to go get back a counter-attack against this Imad al-Din Zinki who dares do something against me. And I want you to notice something. If you're not prepared, now what happens? So a major challenge is about to happen. You took Edessa, but it's not a victory till we do what? How are you going to deal with this Frankish invasion, right? So Imad al-Din Zinki in preparation started what? I need to unify more cities because they're coming. So he started, again, expanding and going for different forts, right? What happened next? Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. So if you go to Europe, by the way, and you look to any of their forts and castles, you always find this, they have a castle and around it is a moat. This principle. Why do you think they do this moat thing? It's not, people will say crocodiles, right? It's not for crocodiles. Of course, it's a good fortification. But remember the technique of Imad al-Din digging under. How can you dig now? You get the idea? So the effect of the Franks and the Muslims, against, it showed even in Europe. So the idea now came to what? One way to defeat this technique of digging under the foundation is what? Surround your fort with what? A water moat. So nobody can dig anymore. Right? So that's an interesting thing to think about. Now, this is unfortunately what happened next. Imad al-Din Zinki sieging one of the forts of the Muslims. One night, he's sleeping, his own servant comes and stabs Imad al-Din Zinki when he's sleeping. And they found him seriously wounded. They tried to bring doctors, but unfortunately, Imad al-Din Zinki died. And the question was, who? This assassin, who did this? Who do you think? Ismailis, what, why? Who did this? Is it the Franks? We don't know for sure. There are many theories. So of course the Westerns, they say, Imad al-Din Zinki was harsh. So he was very harsh against his servant, and his servant got upset at him, and his servant killed him. I don't think that's very likely, right? The most likely scenario, and again, you don't know for sure, it is said when you read that Imad al-Din Zinki was attacking this Muslim fort, and they threatened him. They threatened him and said, you will see what will happen to you tonight. And then we know that this young man, after he did what he did, he ran and went to that fort and went in. So it looks like, there is not for sure, that it is that fort, the ruler contacted the assassins to get rid of Imad al-Din Zinki, just to save himself. When Imad al-Din Zinki passed away, you can imagine, Again, the same problem. Every time somebody tries to do something, what happens? The assassin comes and kills him. But I want you to notice, since the day of Mawdud dies, we have al-Bursuqi. Al-Bursuqi dies, you have who? Right? Are you noticing something? That whenever you kill one of them, another comes up and it's a little bit better, and then you kill him, what happens? So the scholars are working in the background, and it's not a one-man show anymore. You can kill him, but his follower is going to be better, right? So when Imad ad-Din Zinki died, something unexpected happened. Right, I'm going to skip this for now. Right, I'm going to tell you about it later. The Franks seized the opportunity. They attacked the city of Edessa. The city of Edessa has many Armenians and has many Christians. So they contacted them and they said, Imad ad-Din is gone, open the gates. And they went and they took the city back. So it looked like we lost everything. Imad ad-Din fights, gets one city, he's stabbed, assassinated, the Franks attack, Edessa falls back to them again. They took Edessa back. And it looked like people were very frustrated, again, back to square one. But what happened, this point was the point of major change in the Muslim Ummah. When Imad ad-Din died, a man that came after him changed everything. The son of Imad ad-Din Zinki, one of the most noble people that the Muslim Ummah know. In my opinion, greater than Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. The son of Imad ad-Din Zinki. His name is Nur ad-Din Zinki. Nur ad-Din Zinki is Imad ad-Din's son. No, go back. Yeah. So, Nur ad-Din Zinki came to power, and Nur ad-Din Zinki, when Ibn al-Athir describes him, he says the following: I studied the biography of righteous people. Righteous, from the day of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, after the four rightly guided Khulafa, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, I saw nobody that's more just, more honorable than Nur ad-Din Zinki. This is how much, this is the scholars describe him, right? And you'll see why. The difference between Imad ad-Din and Nur ad-Din in one sentence. Imad ad-Din was what? A soldier, right? Nur ad-Din Zinki, see, Imad ad-Din sent his son because he loves Islam. So he sent his son to be taught by the scholars of the time. So Nur ad-Din Zinki, if I want to describe him in one sentence, a scholar. So he's like his father, excellent soldier, excellent strategist, right? But one key thing, he is a right? He even wrote books about hadith, books about fiqh. He's a full-fledged Hanafi faqih, loved the science of hadith. He's a student of the greatest hadith scholar of the time, Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir. So he's a man that is really in himself a scholar, as you'll see. Unlike his dad, which is a soldier, Nur ad-Din Zinki now is what? Has the sight of scholarship and the love of deen within him. So when Nur ad-Din Zinki came to power, the first thing that he did was something completely unexpected. The city of Edessa fell. He ordered all his companions, right now, everybody gathers, everybody takes two, 3 horses. And we will ride nighttime, full gallop, towards the city of Edessa. By Fajr time, and you know why 2, 3 horses? You ride a horse, if the horse is tired, you switch. The horse is high. So, no stop, galloping. And now the Franks are doing what? Celebrating, drinking, right, happy. They're not expecting Nur ad-Din Zinki to show up. By Fajr time, he was already in Edessa. And he took them by surprise and attacked the city. And he succeeds in taking the city of Edessa back from them in one night. And he doesn't stop there. Next day, he orders his troop, gather, let's attack Frankish forts that are close by. And he starts to attack the Franks in different parts and defeating them. What was his message? Imad ad-Din died, the Muslims are there. I am still there. So the Muslims were taken aback, like, they thought like, khalas, they lost. This man comes from nowhere and he takes Edessa back, and now he's attacking the Franks and he's winning, right? And while he's doing this, the unexpected thing happened, which is the counterattack. So few days later, few weeks later, the Franks, remember his father took Edessa, they arrived and they landed in Jerusalem. And now the king of Germany and the king of France, Louis V, and they're gathered together, and Nur ad-Din Zinki is preparing what? It's going to be a major battle, right? And they're very upset, and he's like, oh, they're going to take Edessa, perhaps they attack Aleppo. And he's like, gathering his troops and everything. And guess what happened? Something really interesting happened. The Franks gather in Jerusalem, and they say, okay, we're here to get the city of Edessa back. The city of Edessa is a very small city. And we're the kings of Europe. It's not worth the effort. You get the idea? I mean, they're kings after all. They want some... we can't bring Germany and France and what have you, and what we take is just a small city. We need a bigger city. We need something that's worthwhile. Which city should we attack? And the guy in Jerusalem said, of course, Aleppo. And he said, no. What is the biggest city in Sham? Damascus. That's what we should take. The capital of Sham, the jewel of Sham. And the guy in Jerusalem says what? Baldwin II, this is the king at the time. He says, but that's the only one I have a treaty with. This is my buddy. Remember, we have a joint treaty. It was, and he says, they say, what's a treaty with an infidel? Of course you can violate the treaty. And this is again a lesson for us Muslims. If we really believe that other people, you can have a treaty with them, and the Quran tells us differently. This history tells us differently. You don't trust people like that, especially, of course, they said what? They bring the religious people and they tell them you're absolved from any treaties. Damascus is the one. Bring your troops. And now the whole campaign gathers. Instead of attacking Nuruddin, subhanallah, they decide to attack the city of Damascus. And they gathered and they started going to the city of Damascus and they started laying siege to the city. At this point, what do you think the ruler of Damascus did? Now he's in trouble, right? Because like Nuruddin is like, he fought his father, and now his buddy in Jerusalem is against him, and he's left by himself. What would you do? Ismailis, okay, but like you have now thousands and thousands of Franks, and the Ismailis aren't with you too, right? So he sent to Nuruddin Zengi and tell him what? Help. Despite what he did to his father. The Franks are here and they will take the city, and you're the only one that can help me. If you were Nuruddin Zengi, what would you do? See, most of us, remember what we said? The frustration we have, you deserve, you know what? Ahsan. You reap what you sow. This is what you get. You trusted them, let them taste it. I told you so. Right? Because you take it on your ego. You fought my dad. You traitor. You did that. Now you want me to help you? After what? And you see, that's Allah's decree. Allah saved me because I was fighting in his cause and is punishing you. Right? Nuruddin does not think this way. As a scholar, Nuruddin understands sidq. This is not about this ruler. This ruler deserves the worst. But Damascus is a Muslim city. The Muslims living in Damascus does not deserve that. The ruler is not the people. And Islam, the cause of Islam is bigger than this traitor. I know there are traitors on the path. And we'll see now the way of Nuruddin was different than his father completely. Right? And he responded with the opposite. I am coming with every single soldier I have. And I'm going to defend the city of Damascus with you. And he gathered his forces. And he immediately heads to the city of Damascus. Right? To what? To help this ruler. Telling him, I'm not interested to take your seat or anything. I'm interested in what? Fighting the Franks. And Nuruddin doesn't attack the Franks. There's so many. He surrounds them and starts attacking them day and night. Basically a long war. It's not one battle. Every day traps and this and fighting and daytime and nighttime and harassing them. And then they attack him. He retreats. So that they have to, what are they going to do? Chase me back, And he kept the pressure on them. And Damascus is a very well-fortified city. So the Franks found themselves in a very difficult situation. You have a city that's resisting, and now for the first time, the Muslims are not running away. They're not like the past. They're actually fighting. And they're surrounding us. And I want you to see the change. Something is changing. And they are persisting in fighting. And they're not leaving. And then the siege started to drag. At this point, something really wicked happened. What do you think the ruler of Damascus did? He sent to the Franks and said what? He sent to the king of Jerusalem a letter. And he said, what are you doing? We had a good treaty before. Those people that came, those kings, If they take Damascus, perhaps they're going to take Jerusalem too, and they're going to sit in. So it's not in your best interest to do this. Then he sent a letter to the king of Germany and the king of France, scaring them. He said, listen, you see Nuruddin? That's the Sultan of the Muslimin. Look at his army. If you do not leave, I am going to give him the city of Damascus. And he's going to have Al-Mosul and Aleppo and Damascus. Would you like this to happen? I don't think that's good for you. So what's my proposal? I'll give you a good chunk of money and you can attack other cities. What does he mean by that? You have other cities. Go for Aleppo. Leave me alone, I'll give you. And the Franks said that's not a bad deal. It has been a long time. They could not take the city of Damascus, and they got some money, and they differed. So the king of Jerusalem returned back. The remaining Franks took the money, started heading towards the city of Aleppo. Nuruddin Zenki meets them on the way and defeat the Franks in battle. Now when this happened, I want you to understand this was, that's a crusade. Remember when the first crusade came? What happened to the Muslims? A city after a city fall. Now this time people were like, what? They came and they could not take Damascus and Nuruddin Zenki defeated them? What happened? And I want you to notice there is a difference, right? So now Nuruddin Zenki appeared as what? A hero that saved Islam. People love Nuruddin Zenki. When he defeated the Franks, he did not attack Damascus. He left the guy alone. So Nuruddin Zenki had a very different strategy. So let's speak a little bit about him, because I think that's very important, right? So Nuruddin Zenki's strategy, unlike his father, he viewed the following: justice is very important, right? But unlike his father, he was characterized by what? Justice must abide with the Sharia law. His father used harsh punishments, crucifixions, He said that's not allowed. I cannot punish. Everything has to be in accordance with Allah's rule. I have to follow the Sharia of the Prophet ﷺ. When he did this, he received complaints from the police in his time. You know what the complaints were? Very interesting. When I say Sharia law now, people think, what, my God, barbaric, right? When he established Sharia, he told the police, you cannot punish, you cannot do anything outside the realm of Sharia. The police complained. It is too lenient. If you apply Sharia rule, we can't punish anybody. Because Sharia rule leads towards what? Innocent till proven guilty. It always goes for what? Leniency. And they said, we can't do that. And they sent to one of the scholars, go talk to Nuruddin, tell him that, there are many thugs and thieves, and if you apply Sharia, we'll have to set them free. Because we really don't have full proof. So he sent a letter to Nuruddin telling him, the police is complaining and they're saying this, and Nuruddin's response was, he said, Jazakumullah khair for your advice. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that knows what's best for his servants. And he's the one that ordained Sharia on us. If we attempt to add or subtract anything from it, it's as if we're saying the Sharia is deficient. And we are actually making a claim against Allah that He doesn't. And He said, rest assured that whatever Allah commanded is the best for mankind, lenient or not. So may Allah guide me and you to have this yaqeen and certitude in the Shara of Allah and abide by it no matter what. That's a ruler speaking to a scholar. So you can see Nuruddin was what? A man of Sharia. A man of what? I follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Justice must be established, but according to Islamic law. Punishment, yes, but according to Islamic law. Nothing more, nothing less. So he started this concept of what? Spreading this idea of, courts, judges, justice, right? According to the Islamic Sharia law. So that's one. The second, which was again a major change. His dad wanted to unify Muslims using what? Force. Nuruddin Zenki had a completely different method. The ayah says what? وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. It's good for us to unite. What unites me and you? Unity is good. We can unite, and we tried it. I'm from Egypt, back in the 50s and 60s. Nasser, he tried to unify us as what? Arabs. Did it succeed? No. The Quran says, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بينهم. It is Allah that aided you, and He aided you with the believers, and He's the one that made their hearts unite together. If you spend everything on earth to try to make the hearts of the Muslim Ummah come together, you won't be able to. ولكن الله ألف بينهم. There is one way to unite the Muslim Ummah. It's La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So no, I think you realize this. To unify the Muslim Ummah, it has to be about what? About La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. One God, one ideology, Sunni Islam, God under Sharia. It's not about Turks and Kurds and Arabs and Moroccans, everybody is the same. But he did something actually very powerful. He unified Muslims by unifying their hearts, which is a very interesting technique that I want us to pay attention to. His dad used force. He said, nope, that's not how you get people to unify. I'll unify people by what? Love. When Nuruddin Zinki does all what he does, how do you think the people in Damascus view him? When he's just, as you'll see, when he's kind, when he's generous, and he started to do what? Scholars. He's a scholar himself, surrounded himself with scholars, started talking to scholars in all the cities. So the scholars of the time loved Nuruddin Zinki. So he said, I'm going to unify people through what? Their scholars. I win the scholar's heart. Scholars are the best way. If I am a good person, if I embody the Prophet ﷺ character, if people love me, that's the fastest way to unify people. So he started a network of scholars. As a matter of fact, they would describe his father, if you enter, it's what's around him is what? Helmets. That's what they say, commanders. Nuruddin Zinki, you enter, who's around him? Turbans, scholars. As a matter of fact, the greatest hadith scholar of the time, Hafid ibn Asakir, was one of the teachers of Nuruddin and was always present in the Nuruddin Zinki's. Surrounded by scholars. They describe him as a man of sunnah, of taqwa. He prayed 1/3 of the night, and then he would sleep, and then he would pray 1/6 of the night. When he came to power, he said, my salary, notice this is the Sultan. What is my salary? He said, what is the minimum income in my kingdom? What is the minimum income in California today? 17? The president should take $17. So he said, my salary is the lowest in my kingdom. Right? When he came to power, right, again following the sunnah, something really peculiar happened. A scholar entered onto him one time, because he loved scholars, and this is the benefit of scholars, right? And he started saying poetry to him. Scholarly poetry, right? And he started rebuking Nuruddin Zinki. You claim to follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You claim to pray in the night. You claim to be defending Islam. Yet, you do a hideous crime that our Prophet warned against. What is it? Taxes. It's not Islamic. Taxes, this mukus and taxes that you're taking from people left and right. How much taxes are we paying in California? It's not a Muslim concept. We don't do that. It's unfair. Why are you taking 40% from me? I mean, are you my partner or what? Right? Every time I buy something, you buy a house and you make me buy. It's my house. Why are you taking property tax? Right? So most of the taxes we have are not legitimate. So that scholar said, I know this is the system, but guess what? It's all haram, and there are many ahadith about it. And what are you going to say in front of Rabb al-Alameen on the Day of Judgment when all those people are going to come and ask you? And it said Nuruddin Zinki broke into tears. And on the spot, he gathers, the people that write letters, the writers, and says, send to every single governor that's ruling any city of mine. Tell him to tell the people that Nuruddin Zinki is making tawbah and is asking your forgiveness for taking any money from you. And from now on, 0% taxes. All taxes are abolished. Can you imagine? The next president comes and tells you people in California, how much are you paying? First act, no more taxes. 0. What will happen? Would you love that? I think people will vote for him immediately, right? But what will happen to the economy? Because people think that it will collapse, right? Guess what happened? It boomed. Because Nuruddin employed scholars for what? See, Islam is a system. So yes, 0% taxes. But how do you make people pay? Charity. Those, Sheikh Abdul Qadir, Sheikh Ahmed al-Rifa'i, Ibn al-Jawzi, one of the biggest themes in all the scholars was what? Badl. Give. But give with your free will. I'm not going to push you. Donate. So because of the scholars and how much they emphasize the concept of sadaqah, something completely strange happened. People stopped donating left and right. And schools were established, hospitals were established, endowments were established. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, all those people took zero from the state. Nothing. People started donating. As a matter of fact, one of the stories to tell you how much people changed, right? It's one woman was getting married. You're getting married, there is a dowry concept, right? How much do you want for? A very common question, right? So that woman went to Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani and said, here is my future husband, we're getting married. My dowry is the following. He works in your school for free for 1 year. Imagine somebody's getting married and she wants dowry from you. And comes to you and tells you, my dowry, you go work in the Yorba Linda Masjid for 1 year, full-time job, 40 hours a day, for free for them. Donate your time, donate your effort. People were donating left and right. And people love Nuruddin Zenki. I say 40% of my money, I'm going to now start buying. So the business, it boomed. And people love the idea. Nuruddin Zenki is... So he wants people hard by just following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So he was a very sincere person. Followed the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So his idea was what? People are not very well educated in Islam, we need to educate them. So in his time, schools flourished. In Aleppo, and there is a reason for this, Aleppo had a lot of Ismaili influence. Nuruddin Zenki built 8 schools in Aleppo. Why do you think he did that? You see the idea, right? We need to fight this. Every single city, he would do 2 things. Schools plus fortification. And he would make sure the city would have enough arms, enough food. If anything happens, they can defend themselves. So and people saw that. So people really loved Nuruddin Zenki. Now, something interesting happened. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead to a little bit in the... And we'll speak more about Nuruddin Zenki. His character is just amazing, right? By the way, he was very serious in attacking the Franks. Every year almost, you would hear about Nuruddin Zenki fighting the Franks. One of his top commanders was a man by the name of Asad ad-Din Shirkuh. And this was a very famous commander of Nuruddin Zenki, and you will see him more in this series, right? And in one of the battles, he defeated the Franks, killed their leaders, and it was just tremendous victory after victory after victory. And the Franks started realizing Nuruddin Zenki, his soldiers are not like the previous soldiers. Nuruddin Zenki did something that you'll be shocked. He's the one that when he came, remember his dad, what did he do to the soldiers? Discipline, justice. Nuruddin was the same, but he added one other thing. Sharia. What do you mean? He looked at his soldiers and said, you'll be shocked. No more wine. What do you mean? Muslims used to drink wine? And yeah, they're soldiers. So when Allah gives them victory, they want to celebrate. What do? They drink. And they used to have belly dancing and, vulgar music. And Nuruddin Zenki comes to power and said, all this is haram. Soldiers, that's not allowed. Wine is not acceptable. You don't celebrate by disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Vulgar music, belly dancing, bars. There were bars. He's the one that said, banned, stop, no wine. Christians, you can. Muslims, you can't. Because we have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he added that dimension to the soldiers. Scholars are within the soldiers. You have to educate them. They have to be righteous. So he added that dimension to them. And you can see that his soldiers were starting to be in the battlefield, they're a lot more stronger. Right? And the Franks started noticing this. Now something interesting happened, and I'm going to go quickly here. I'll say this quickly because I think it's a little bit important. Beside the main thing, of course, the economical reform, the jurisprudence, that there is no more wine. Nuruddin started something that 100, 200 years later became very, very prominent. The idea of the following: he would go, he would buy slaves, Christian slaves, young boys, from the skirts of the kingdom. And notice his intent. Why are you buying slaves? He would buy them and do what to them? Not only, no, says Nuruddin was more than that. He wouldn't free them, no. Those are, young boys, Christians. He would buy them and start doing the following. I'm going to teach you Islam. You're going to memorize Quran. I'm going to put you through our schools, right? I'm going to treat you in the most dignified way. You're the Mamluk of Nuruddin. Best clothes, best treatment. So they started to love him, right? Not only that, martial arts. All the techniques of martial arts, sword fighting, arrows, jiu-jitsu, call it whatever nowadays, right? So they spend their time in two things: studying Islam and martial arts, right? And what is he preparing? So they grow up, now you can fight, and he would make them marry each other, the boys and the girls, and free them for the sake of Allah. So those Mamluks of Nuruddin, so-called slaves, are they really slaves? They love Nuruddin sincerely, because nobody treats them this way. He's like a father to them. So they had a relation with Nuruddin Zenki. The way they viewed him is not like my master. It's Nuruddin. It's almost like my dad. So the loyalty that they had for Nuruddin Zenki, the way they viewed him, was unwavering. When it came in the battlefield, those people, and where do you think he got them from? Let's see. You want people that are really good in the battlefield. He's speaking. Khabib. There are certain areas in the Muslim world, you know what I'm speaking about. Those people are tough. Afghanistan. There are certain areas, they're tough. Right? So he got people from there. Right? And they were Christians. You see what his idea is? I'm taking a Christian boy, making him a Muslim, right? Teaching him Quran and Sunnah and Arabic, and making him what? As a good soldier. If he wants to fight, he can fight. So those Mamluks, when it came to the battlefield, they were known. The Mamalik and Nuriya are one of the toughest people on the battleground. Their dedication, their martial arts capabilities, their strength, their heart, their loyalty to Nuruddin is unwavering. This continued later with Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. And by the way, centuries later, it's those people that are going to rule Egypt and defeat the Mongols. By the way, so that's why I'm saying it here. It started back then, right? So he had this kind of troops. Asad ad-Din did the same thing. So his leaders did the same concept. He would buy young boys. So each of his leaders now started to have what? His own Mamluks. You get the idea? So now you're having elite warriors that have Islamic teaching and really good on the battlefield, right? So this was one thing that started spreading. One thing quickly, and this is an interesting, while those years were happening and Nuruddin Zenki was fighting the Franks the year 545, right? Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani is in Baghdad. And one of the books of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani is called Al-Fath al-Rabbani, translated, right? Book is about what? The sessions that Sheikh Abdul Qadir used to teach in the years 544, 545 in Baghdad. This is the same time when the Crusaders came. What were the topics that Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani was teaching? And that was very interesting for me. What is he speaking? And I want you to notice jihad al-nafs, jihad al-shaitan, fearing Allah, not objecting on God, the poverty of the heart, reasons to love Allah, faith, tawheed, truthfulness, commanding your ego, arrogance, blameworthy anger. This is what he's teaching. This is the teacher that was in this time. It's very interesting. The book is there. But you can see again the kind of reform those scholars were working at, right? Which is very, very interesting. A turn of event happens, and we maybe will stop here, that will change the map altogether. The Franks started to realize the northern area with Nuruddin Zenki is quite strong. And Nuruddin Zenki has strong warriors. But Egypt, it's completely out of the picture. Do you hear anything about Egypt for the last... the Ismailis are very weak. They have an alliance with the Franks. And we'll see a little bit about that maybe next time. Very interesting what they said about Egypt. Very interesting. One line, I'm not going to spoil it. They said the following. Again, and you can reflect on today. I'm not going to say what it means, right? But they said the following. We had a good relation with Egypt. And we can do whatever we want to do in the north while we are assured that our southern borders are safe. And we used to have a treaty with them, and we used to have good business, and we were in good shape. Because our south, we can do whatever we want to do in the north, and we are completely not threatened. The south is safe. I'm not, you just think about what I'm saying. And you'll see why later, right? You'll see why the statement is important later, right? So now what happened is, okay, the north is strong, Egypt is weak. So let's go that direction. The first city before Gaza is Asqalan. And the Franks succeed in attacking the city of Asqalan. Egypt is too weak, and they take the city of Asqalan to themselves. When Nur ad-Din saw this, he was very disturbed. Why? Asqalan is that now they're going to go to Egypt. And Nur ad-Din Zenki said that's not acceptable. I need to attack. But Damascus is on the way. Do you see the problem? So he sent to the ruler of Damascus, telling him what, I'm not telling you to do anything. I just want your support. I'm going to go attack Asqalan. Allow me to use Damascus as a base, supply my enemy, my troops, and I'm not. You stay where you are. I'm not attacking you. What do you think the ruler of Damascus did? Contacted the Franks, said Din Zenki is coming. We have a treaty. He's a dangerous man. You have to come and help. And the Franks did not need any convincing. So they started sending their delegation and their forces to around Damascus. And of course, the Franks started doing what? The farmers and the peasants, they started taking their property, they started oppressing people, and again the guy doesn't mind. Do whatever you want outside my city, it's fine. As long as I'm sitting on my chair, it's good. Nur ad-Din Zenki was furious, right? And what happened? He started, and I want you to notice what he did. He started sending messages to the scholars of Damascus. Notice this, the scholars of Damascus. And then Nur ad-Din Zenki started sending his troops to Damascus. Why? And I'll read you one of the letters. This is a letter that he sent to the ruler of Damascus. And I want you to read it. He came with his army. And he says the following. I have not pitched camp here in order to make war against you or lay siege against Damascus. This is not why I came. Only the many complaints of the Muslims have induced me to act in this way. The farmers have been despoiled of their goods and separated from the children by the Franks. And they have no one to defend them. You're not defending them, right? And notice what he said. This is very important. Since God bestowed on me power to grant safety to the Muslims and wage war against the Franks, it is impermissible for me to neglect them and fail to come to their defense. Dua only is not acceptable for me. Allah gave me an army. If Allah gave me an army and the Muslims are being attacked, it's impermissible for me to sit and do nothing to defend them. I hope it's clear what he's saying, right? Especially that I know that you are unable to protect them, and I'm aware of your degeneration, which led you to seek the aid of the Franks and deliver goods of your poorest people to them, people who have criminally wronged. This please neither God nor any Muslim. You get the idea? So now he started what? Defending the people of Damascus. And sending to the scholars inside Damascus the same thing. This is impermissible. Yet, I'm not going to attack him. I'm not going to let Muslims fight Muslims. The city of Damascus, what do? What do you think now happened inside Damascus? The scholars love Nur ad-Din. And they start to speak to the people. People inside Damascus, what do you think they're feeling now? Their ruler is a traitor. Nur ad-Din Zenki is the one defending us. With the help of the scholars. Finally, some of the soldiers in Damascus sent a letter to Nur ad-Din Zenki telling him, enough is enough. You come next day after Salat al-Fajr, we're opening one of the gates for you, and you come to the city. And by the grace of Allah, Fajr time, they opened the gates, and Nur ad-Din Zenki entered the city of Damascus without a single drop. What do you think he did to that ruler? Kill him? Why not? He took him, he said, okay, Damascus is now mine. He gave him another fort and another small city. Said, you go, rule that city under me, but leave Damascus. Why do you think he left him and not killed him? He's a traitor. The idea here is, what is he telling Muslims, the other traitors? I'm not after you. I don't want to eliminate, because I'm not a go under me, right? Be under me. I'll give you something, right? I'm not after bloodshed. You get the idea? He's winning the hearts of other people. That was his technique. And when this happened, something amazing happened. For the first time, the three cities got united. Now you have Aleppo, Mosul, and Damascus. Sham has been united under Nur ad-Din Zenki. This is a major step. For the first time, you have the whole Sham against the Franks. Nevertheless, and we'll stop here, things weren't always great for Nur ad-Din Zenki. When this happened, the Franks realized Nur ad-Din Zenki is pretty serious. And every year he attacks them. So they gathered and said, next year we'll lay a trap for him. So what happened? Nur ad-Din Zenki starts gathering his armies, right? And he goes to, it's called Waqa'at al-Baqi'a. He gathers his army like every year, and he's going to, an expedition. Little does he know, the Franks have gathered their forces, expecting him. And as Nur ad-Din Zenki approached, they surprised Nur ad-Din Zenki with a surprise attack when he was not ready. And his army was not in a prepared state. And the Franks charged with their knights, what you see, the fort of iron. And the Muslims were not up for it. And they started going within the Muslim camp. They succeed in reaching the tent of Nur ad-Din Zenki. And Nur ad-Din Zenki was about to be captured. It was one of his soldiers that gave him his horse. Nur ad-Din Zenki rode and ran. And it was a major defeat for the Muslim army. Nur ad-Din Zenki lost a lot of people in that battle. And here is what happened, which is very important, and we'll stop here. Nur ad-Din Zenki starts running, couple of miles, then he stops. And he starts gathering all the soldiers and all the knights that fled. It said 1,000 people gathered around him. So he laid camp. Qutb ad-Din al-Naysaburi, which is a scholar with him, right, interesting, told him, Ya Sayyidi, this is not a good thing to do. The Franks are over there, you're laying camp, putting a flag. If they see you, they will come and attack you. And he said, if Allah gives me 1,000 knights, I am not afraid from attacking them back. And I will fight myself. So the scholar told him, Ya Sayyidi, please do not fight yourself. Nur ad-Din used to fight with 2 swords. He's one of those people, like very powerful. He said, Sayyidi, please don't. Because if you do, it's too dangerous. Something will happen to you. And you're the man. And if something happens to you, who will defend Islam? We need you. You're so valuable. Don't risk yourself. Nur ad-Din Zenki with tears in his eyes. He told him the following. And notice the humility, not the narcissistic, I am the man. He said, who is Nur ad-Din that you tell such words to him? I'm defending Islam. Islam is relying on me. Who is Nur ad-Din? No. And then he told him, who was it that was defending Islam before Nur ad-Din Zenki? That's Allah Rabbil Alameen. If I die, Allah is the one that's defending this deen, and He will send someone. This is Tawheed. This concept of La ilaha illallah. I'm not the only person. And if something happens to me, my reliance is on Allah. How can you rely on me? And you're a scholar. Don't you know about Tawheed? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's not about me. Right? And then people gather to him. Something very powerful happened. And tell him, Ya Sayyidi, please, we need money to get more horses and more arms and more, we need another army. And we need money right now to defend the Muslims. You are giving so much money to the people in the masajid and the schools and scholars and people that get this money from them, give it to us so we can have an army, so we can fight, so we defend them. The response of Nur ad-Din Zenki, wallahi, written in gold, and we'll stop here. He said the following: you want me to take money from people that fight for me day and night with arrows that never miss and give it to you? You fight only when you're awake and your arrows hit and miss. Those people, their dua is an arrow that never miss. And then he said, عن سعد بن أبي وقاص عن رسول الله محدث. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sahih al-Bukhari, right? That the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, هل تنصرون إلا بضعفائكم وفقرائكم? Is it that you attain any victory except through the du'as of your righteous weak people and righteous good people? Their dua is as effective as your sword. I believe in that. When did he say that? It's not when he's in power, when he needs the money. Nuruddin Zinki believed in the power of dua. Do never underestimate dua and what it can do. The difference is Nuruddin Zinki makes dua and he's in the battlefield. He has both. He's not only in the battlefield, and dua is very important. And he believes in the hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This shows you who Nuruddin Zinki is. And what happened next, this is where we're going to start next time, and we'll stop here. Egypt. The next chapter, right? Egypt is becoming very weak. Nuruddin Zinki has been defeated. The Franks started to okay, he is powerful. Egypt is a big country, lucrative, the Nile River. The Ismailis are very weak. We defeated them and we took Asqalan. It's time for us to do what? Go and take Egypt. And now it's this chapter, what I call the race to the Nile. They are going to attack Egypt, and Nuruddin Zinki will have to do something about it. And there is the Ismailis in Egypt to add to the complexities and the assassins. What will happen next? This is inshallah what we'll see next time inshallah. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خيرا.